Okay, everyone, thank you for coming. Actually, I just checked the Google Doc on the web, and there was no question actually posted for lecture series number 6. So I presume the lectures are straightforward for everybody, so that's why there was no question there. So that's okay, since you are here. So I will open the floor to you. So if you got any questions related to the lecture, you want to mention that now, feel free. Okay, I can pause a little bit for you to ask questions. Anybody? You can feel free to enter on the chat, or you can just speak up, either way. Okay? Any questions related to the lecture? I really see no questions on the Google Doc, so that's why. Okay. Colette. Okay, thanks for being honest. You're still catching up with on week number 6. That's okay. It's understandable. So guys, it's really the time allocated for you. So I would be concerned if you cannot really take advantage of that. So if you're still trying to go through the lecture series number 6, that'll be okay if you really have no question today. But maybe you want to. Yeah, so I think you really want to what the only Q&A we got left will be if not today, then it will be tomorrow. So maybe you want to finish off the lecture so you can ask me questions tomorrow. I know you got left 3 as well. That's why I try to post it very early, right? Okay, since you're here, if you don't have any question yet for lecture number 6, if you have any question in general about lab 3, I can answer some general question about lab 3. But if you got some questions very specific to your implementation, I need to answer that maybe during the office hour or by email. Hopefully that's understandable. If you want to ask me questions regarding just in general about lab 3 or clarification, feel free. That's fine too. Yeah, online learning is challenging, so I think we are all learning. So you want to maybe work more on the time management side, right? So Amir, you seem to be still struggling with enumeration type, right? Okay, I can mention that very quickly, but I just responded to you on the forum, the latest one. You can look at that too. I can mention that very quickly. Okay, so that's something also addressed in the forum post. You can also refer to it. So if you look at the lab number 3, I forgot the exact encoding. So in the grammar file, so over here, okay. So remember, it's something called Space Defender 1 dot grammar.txt, right? And I think there's one type over here called row. I think I will simply say A, B, and C, B, etc. Basically, I forgot the exact order, but basically that one there simply doesn't follow the alphabetical order. It doesn't have to. Nobody says you have to follow that order, okay? But it's because it's simply a set, okay? And then I think one of the events that you will need to use row will be the move. Okay, so for example, you want to move to row, X will be row over here, and then also you got Y to be some other type, right? So the X here is really the important point, right? And then somehow you use this to generate an ETF, right? You use this to say ETF dash new. And then it's going to generate an ETF projects for you. So basically, this is your lab 3 projects. Okay, and then let me set the context, and then I will help Amir, your fellow student, a little bit. So over here, there is one class. Okay, let me finish this, and then I can see there's some question on the chat. I'll get to you. Okay, just bear with me. So there is one class over here. It's called the ETF type constraint. Okay, something like that. You can see the precise name in the instruction. And then that one there, it really try to define the mapping for all the enumerated member. For example, A and D and C and B. For example, they would say A is defined to be 1, and B, and then D is defined to be 2, and etc. So you would think whatever that should be 2 should be B, right? That's what you would think conceptually, but it does not have to be the case. So for any programming language you might use, if they do support
Mr. Jackie, I have another question.
Oh, sorry. Just give me one moment. I just want to see if Amir got any follow-up question. Yeah, I want to see.
Sure.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'll get to you. Just give me one moment. Amir is saying your confusion is that why move B2 moves the Starfighter to the second row and second column. Well, okay, so let's say you talk about some particular example. If you say move B2 over here, right? When you actually make this call in the acceptance test, right? Think about the grid. The grid is from the external player's point of view. You simply go for A, B, C, D. And then when you say B2, of course, it's going to be row number 2 and also column number 2. That's exactly where you want to move. How you actually implement that, when you implement this, you have to make sure this particular encoding over here is something that's specific to the abstract UI for the ETF. That one is something the user or the player is not aware of. So you want to make sure whatever this get passed, you have to convert that into the actual alphabets that it really corresponds to. That's the additional inconsistency you have to resolve. Amir, is that okay? So you're okay, right? You're still not okay. So which part are you not okay? Well, Amir, you want to speak to me during the office hour, if you feel comfortable? That might be easier for me to help you more specifically. How about that? You want to drop by my office hour tomorrow? Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. So wherever I delay, could you please ask me a question again?
Yeah, Mr. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure we are not able to, for example, we tap move two. We only able to tap like move any like not the digital number, but just A, B, C, D, right?
yes. So think about it. Okay. So there are two levels over here. When you think about, let me try to do. Okay, from the player. Okay, from the player's point of view, they're gonna say move, and then they're gonna say B, and then 2, for example, right? Let's say this, okay? So that's what the player would say. I want to go to row B and also column number 2, okay? And then there will be an intermediate level over here. It will be translated. I'm not sure if I remember this correctly. Let me just double check. Okay, just give me one more. I believe it's 7, but let me just be sure. So if you look at the instruction over there for your lab number 3, let's see this. Okay, you can see B. Okay, B is actually mapped to number 7. So notice that this encoding here is specific to the abstract UI for this project here. But your model should be somehow independent of this particular abstract UI encoding. So you have to do some conversion yourself. Okay, 7. Very good. Okay. Let's say this. Think about the move over here from the acceptance test will be interpreted by the abstract UI. The abstract UI is going to pass as this 7 and also 2 over here. So think about this one here is the magic encoding. Not known to the player. Okay, so now for you as a programmer to program this, right? So now in order for you, so now for your design, so what you should do is you should say, okay, this is a number over here, right? So think about, let's say this is X and this is Y, just the parameter, right? So now you would say if, for example, X equals B, right? Remember B is the name constant that we can actually get, right? If X equals B, in that case, we know that the correct row, right? There's something also said in the forum. Correct row should be equal to 2. So now think about the B over here. It corresponds to the magic encoding over here, which is 7, right? So this is a 7 over here. So this is 7, and also X is also 7. So since they match, so you're going to say the correct row should be actually equal to 2. So that means the actual row you're going to move in your grid that you're going to implement you should really go to row number 2 and also column number 2. That's where you should go to, right? So now 2 and 2. Does it help?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It helps.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. All right. Okay, so we got some question over here regarding when the Starfighter S will turn to X. So basically, you're asking about when the Starfighter will be destroyed, right? Okay, so I would say, so when will the Starfighter get destroyed? So did you refer to the problem statements? The problem. I think there are two ways. Okay, I can summarize very quickly. Okay, if you go to the problem section there, so you can see every turn is divided into two parts, either the first part or the second part, right? So the first part, only the projectiles actually move. If there's any existing projectile, they might move. So now when they move, they might be colliding with where the Starfighter is. So that's possibility number one, that the Starfighter might get destroyed. Possibility number two, in the second part of the turn, so when the projectile move, so somehow if the player actually move the Starfighter into a location where along the way there is some projectile, in that case, you will also get destroyed. Okay, so these are the two ways. All right. Okay, any other questions? Very good. Yeah, so there are two ways to get for the projectile to get destroyed. So either in the first part, when the projectile actually, when they make their movement, they collide with the Starfighter. Or in the second part, symmetrically, when the Starfighter move, they might move into a location where along the way, they actually collide with some projectile. So these are the two ways. Okay. All right. Okay, any other questions about the projects? I'm sorry, not the project. I mean the lab 3, right? Yeah, I'll try to answer some general question over here as much as I can. But I think sometimes when it gets a little bit more complicated, I think either you can post the clarification on the forum or just come to my office hour, right? So I think that might be more effective for me to help you. So guys, any questions for me? Any others? Okay, so should I call it a day and let you maybe catch up with both Lab 3 and also the lecture? So tomorrow will be your second chance to really ask me more questions about the lecture. Let me just see if I missed any comments from the chat. Let me just see. Robbie asked one question. Related to week number 6, in the real world, how will we perform regression testing as we don't have an oracle? Robbie, I think Robbie, it's a very good question. Actually, I like this question here. Okay, so guys, let me repeat what Robbie was asking. Okay. What Robbie was asking is this. You can think about it's more like a question to week number 6 as well. Okay. The regression testing you are going to perform for both your lab number 3 and also for the project goes like this. Let me talk about what you're set up to be, and then I will tell you why it's not realistic. Okay, think about this is your ETF program, your ETF design, your version. Okay, and then think about if we got A001. Well, let's say just make it a little bit different. Let's say you design some customized test cases. Let's say AT009.txt. Okay, and then the way we said you're gonna test it using regression testing is by passing this as input, and then this one is going to produce AT001.actual.txt. Right. So this is going to be a file. Okay. Let me just write a little bit better. Okay. So the output from there, of course, you can redirect that into some file. So this is a file. So AT001.actual.txt. Okay. And then how do you know if this file is really correct, right? So basically, to do that, you have to, we give you this oracle program here. So this is oracle.exe. You can think about this. How do we get this oracle? We get this oracle by finalizing the solution that we got internally. So we don't really give you the source code for the solution, but we give you the executable. Okay, and the AT009 is also passed as input, the same input. And then oracle.exe, presumably the solution will be correct. Of course, if you find that the oracle generates something that doesn't make sense, you can always report the bugs to us. Okay, but let's assume oracle is correct. And then this one here is going to generate AT001.expected.txt. Okay, and then for you to check to see whether your program is correct, you're going to see if they are identical, right? So that's basically what you were told to do, about regression testing. So Robbie's question was this: in real life, in real world, how can you expect to get a solution version while you're developing your solution? For example, let's say you're a supervisor in the workplace. They want you to define some system, implement some system. It's not really just for you to exercise, right? So they wouldn't really get a solution from their side in the first place. So rather, they will expect you to really come up with a solution. So now this oracle over here simply doesn't make sense in the real world. I agree with you. Okay, so you can think about, Robbie, what we're doing here is you can think about this oracle here will be replaced by a human. Okay, in real world, replaced by a customer or clients, meaning that when your customer or clients requested you to actually develop something for them, so they will pay you, right? So now while you're developing, every time you're making some progress on your development, let's say, and now how do you know if this particular file is really the correct one? Well, you don't really have an oracle there to check, but you can definitely consult with your customer to ask them, this is my output for my intermediate developments. Does it make sense to you? If it does make sense, in that case, you will be considered as correct. But in this course, I cannot just let all 300 students to consult with me with a TA. That's not very efficient. So what we do instead, we simply automate the customer's role as an Oracle program, so you can run the regression test yourself. Another way to think about this is kind of outside the scope for this course. It's called requirements elicitation. Okay, so think about in the real world, if you consult with your customer, it's something called requirements elicitation. But if you're interested, especially if you're in the engineering program, you can take a 3312. That's a software engineering requirements course. Okay, so Robbie, does it make sense to you? Very good. Okay, that's a good question though. Okay, let me see. I remember I saw some question from Eric. Okay, Eric said he got a question for the quiz this Friday. Well, not really on Friday, but you should really do it before Friday. Will that also include topics about the ETF? Yeah. So I would say because lecture number 6 actually got 2 parts, right? The first part is about the ETF. The second part is really about the inheritance stuff. So, but I would say to do the quiz, you just need to study the slides for the ETF stuff, the conceptual stuff. I'm going to ask you maybe a very technical questions that's covered in the tutorial video. Okay, so maybe that's what you wanted to know. Okay, I got some questions over here from Chris. Okay, let me see this. When I try to make a temporary array inside my function, I have to check it if it's attached before I can use it. No, you don't need to, actually, because by default, every declared reference variable is attached by default, unless you say that's detachable. Okay, so after I write if attached temp, then the program runs as if it's not attached and never actually runs what's inside. So Chris, I think in this, you may actually want to send, speak to me maybe during the office hour so I can look at your code. I think that might be better, right? So Chris, does it make sense? It seems, yeah, I think if you want to check to see whether the temporary array is actually attached or not, I think the syntax you put in here is actually right. But as to why it wouldn't go into the if branch, I'm not too sure. I need to see your code. So maybe drop by my office hour tomorrow, and then I can take a look. Okay, did I miss anybody? Okay, I think I'm just reading through everybody's comments. Okay. Yeah, so you said it's not really declared. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, so please, Chris, just come tomorrow. I think that'll be much more effective for me to help you. All right. Okay, good. All right, guys. Any other questions? So Amir asked something about so in your ETF class, you might see something like this. For example, require else. Amir, can you remind me again in which class did you see this? Is it in the ETF? Is it the ETF move interface or ETF play interface? Do you remember which class? ETF play. Okay. Okay, so Amir's question was this. If you look at every generated ETF abstract UI class, you will see something maybe under the play. You will see require else. So you're really wondering about what this else is. Apparently require is that means you're defining some precondition for this. Okay, the else part here is something called subcontracting, right? And this is something that we haven't covered just yet. So this one is really saying, so now in the context of a child class, for example, you can see ETF play is actually a child class of ETF command. Now I just want to introduce some additional precondition, basically. So now the way to introduce a precondition is by using not just a require, but require else. And the else over here has a special meaning, which I don't want to confuse you just yet. So I would say you simply just want to keep this as is. Whenever you want to add additional precondition to your classes, you should never ever actually try to change the precondition or the precondition in the ETF class. You want to add your precondition only in the model cluster, only the classes you created. Okay, and we'll talk about subcontracting maybe about week number 10 or 11. Okay, very good. Okay, Chris, you said you simply figured it out. Very good. Okay, very good. Yeah, exactly. Every time you want to make sure you say creates. Yes, initialize the variable. No problem. All right, guys, any other questions? Yeah, I'm not too sure how many of you can still make it to tomorrow, but as far as the lecture number 6 is concerned, I will really encourage you to try as much as you can. You can even just go through the slides. I don't mind. You can catch up with the recording later. Maybe at least try to, before tomorrow at 2:30, try to go over the slides to see which part may not make sense to you. And then you can ask me the questions tomorrow, okay? Otherwise, after tomorrow, you only got my office hour, in which case I'm not sure if that might be packed. So in which case, I cannot really help you too much on the lecture materials, okay? Okay, any other questions for me? Yeah, but Amir, you can definitely drop by the office hour tomorrow if you still got trouble with understanding enumeration type. I'll try to give you maybe some specific programming example tomorrow. Okay. Okay, guys, can I assume that you're okay for now? Maybe you just haven't got any questions yet. So I would say maybe I can let you go earlier so you can take advantage of the time. Maybe try to go over the slides. If you can catch up with the recording for lecture 6, that's great. And then ask me questions tomorrow. I'll still be here tomorrow at 2:30. All right? All right. All right, guys, if you got any trouble regarding the course material before tomorrow, you can always email me or drop by my office hour. And then maybe I'll see you tomorrow then for the Q&A. Okay? I'll end the meeting now. All right. Talk to you later.